In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the contactor on your outside air conditioning unit. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Let's go change and get this done. Come on. A contactor is like a switch that turns your outside fan and compressor on and off when the thermostat says it's time. When a contactor stops working, it can get stuck in the on or off position. Sometimes it won't make a solid connection. A contactor is another one of those parts that you can't really repair. You should replace it if it goes bad. If you follow the electrical wires coming out of the disconnect, you can remove the access panel and find the contactor. It looks like this. Now, sometimes spiders or bugs can get inside the contactor and prevent it from making a good solid electrical connection. So I suggest you get some compressed air and blow out where the electrical connections are, just in case it's something simple like that. Once you've decided that you need to replace it, you can pick up a new contactor online, or you can go by your local HVAC supplier if they sell to the public. The brand doesn't really matter. All you really need to know is the amperage and whether it's a single pole or a 2-pole contactor. If you're not sure what yours is, you can take it to the supplier and ask them for the same thing. First thing you want to do is actually cut power to the contactor. Now, we're going to do that in two different places because you've got 240 volts coming from the disconnect and you've got 24 volts coming from the thermostat and control board. Remove the disconnect or shut power off at the breaker, and then shut power off at the furnace. This is usually a switch next to the furnace or a breaker.
Like with any electrical project, you want to double check and make sure that the power is off. Use your tester and make sure that it doesn't light up.
Pay attention to which wires are connected to the line side and the terminal side, usually labeled with an L1 and an L2, and then a T1 and a T2.
It's always a good idea to take a picture of how the wires are hooked up so that you can hook them back up the same way. If you have enough slack, you can just hook up the wires to the new contactor as you disconnect them from the old one. Mine didn't have enough slack, so I'm going to use the picture that I took to reconnect the wires. If it's been a while since the wires have been disconnected, they may be stuck on, and you might want to use some pliers to help you get enough leverage to pull them off.
Okay, so now I'm gonna hook everything back up. L1 and L2. I have the black wire coming on the L2. Oh. So you can see that L1 and T1 are on the side with the switch. But on this one, L1 and T1 are on the side with the pass-through. Now, it's more important to hook up the pass-through to the pass-through and the switch to the switch when you're reconnecting things. Since I make these videos for homeowners and not necessarily for technicians, you can see how it's easy to get confused when things don't go exactly the way that you think that they should go. And a technician having the training and the tools and the know-how that they have can act on the fly and know that they should hook this up differently than what you normally would hook that up as. So as you're going through and doing any of these projects, it shouldn't be embarrassing for you if you get in over your head and you have to stop and ask for help. You don't want to, if you're unsure, don't risk hooking it up wrong. Stop and call a technician that you trust for some help, or a company or something. Again, these videos are meant to just give you some basic information so that if you want to try and do these things yourself, you can. But there's a lot of moving parts and pieces and a lot of technical that goes into these things. And so just know that when you're watching these videos, and good luck, but call somebody if you're not sure what you're doing.
At this point in the installation, I actually run into another issue. The previous contactor had lugs on the line side that those short wires could just slip up under and be tightened. The new contactor has a screw connector, and for the best installation, the wires really should be wrapped around the screw so that it makes a good solid connection. I tried to use the short wires and they just kept coming out from under the connector. So I decided I was going to run a new wire going from the disconnect to the condensing unit so that I have enough length to make up the electrical connections properly. If I would have left it with the old wires, it would have been a repair waiting to happen. I disconnect the old wires from the load side of the disconnect. I pulled the old piece of wire out. I had a roll of wire in my garage so I could fish a new line through the conduit going from the disconnect to the condensing unit. Then I stripped the wires and hooked them back up under the lugs. You can see the surge protector that we hooked up in a previous video. I'm sure there's a link somewhere if you want to do that.
Now,
then we rehook the conduit up to the condensing unit. Remove the insulation from around the wires. Strip the wires. Use our wire strippers to make a hook on the end of the wires. When you put the wire around the screw terminal, be sure to put the hook so that when you tighten in a clockwise motion, it pulls the hook in to the connector. Now that we have a good solid connection, we can reinstall the contactor. Double check and make sure all the wires are hooked up in the right spot. Put the cover back on, and then turn the power back on at the disconnect and at the furnace.
well, that was a little bit more involved than I expected it to be going into the project. Replacing a contactor is usually pretty straightforward. You have wires coming into one side and wires going out, but you never know what you're going to run into with these projects around the house, and that's why sometimes it's best to leave it up to the professionals. So if you do ever get into a project like trying to replace your contactor and you feel like you've gotten in over your head or you're not sure what to do next, just stop and call a technician that you trust for some help. They will not mind at all coming in and seeing that you tried to do it yourself and finishing the job for you or bailing you out. I hope this video was helpful. Until next time, thanks so much for watching and good luck with your next project. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Yeah, see ya.